Welcome to the Flotel Salon. We hear about AI everywhere, but what's actually happening inside companies? Well, today we're going to dig into the brand new 2025 Global AI Survey from McKinsey. They just wrapped this up over the summer, so it's super fresh and it gives us a real peek behind the curtain. Let's dive in. So the first big number that jumps out is pretty wild. AI isn't some future tech anymore. It's here. A whopping 88% of companies are now using AI regularly in at least one business function. Yeah, you heard that right, 88%. It's not for the geeks in the corner office anymore, it's everywhere. Okay, so with almost everyone on the AI bandwagon, you'd think the profits would be rolling in for everybody, right? I mean, that's the big question here. Is all this adoption actually leading to success? Well, this is where things get really interesting. Get this. Only 39% of those companies are seeing any real, tangible impact on their profits. Just 39%. That is a huge, huge disconnect between using AI and actually making money from it. And that right there is what the report calls the AI adoption paradox. It's this idea that companies are getting stuck in what you might call the pilot trap. They're playing around with it, running little experiments, but they just can't seem to make that leap from cool project to actual business value. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? Look at that. The huge majority of organizations are stuck way back in the exploration or pilot stages. They're dipping their toes in the water, but they're not diving in. That big jump to full-scale deployment, that's where almost everyone is stumbling. Let's put an even finer point on it. Only about a third of companies have even started to scale their AI stuff. So yeah, the tools are there, but they're not being woven into the core of how the business actually runs. And that's where the real game-changing money is. So the big question is, how do you get out of that trap? Well, luckily, the report shines a spotlight on this elite group they call AI high performers. These are the folks who have cracked the code. And if we look at what they're doing, we can get a playbook for how to win. Now, we're talking about a really small, exclusive club here. This is just the top 6% of companies, the ones seeing more than a 5% bump in their profits directly from AI. These guys aren't just messing around. They are absolutely crushing it. So, what's their secret sauce? The very first thing that sets them apart is their mindset. It's all about ambition. Most companies look at AI and think, hey, how can we be a little more efficient? But these high performers, they look at AI and think, how can we completely reinvent our entire business? It's a totally different ballgame. And the numbers absolutely back this up. The high performers are 3.6 times more likely to go for broke, to use AI for big, disruptive, transformative change. They're not just trying to get a little better. They're trying to change the rules of the game entirely. All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are these winners actually doing differently? It really comes down to three things: what they're aiming for, what they're doing about it, and how committed they are. First up, their goals. This is a huge one. See, pretty much everyone uses AI to try and be more efficient. But the high performers, they're playing three-dimensional chess. They're chasing efficiency and new revenue growth and big innovation all at the same time. And it's not just talk. They actually act on it. Over half of these top companies are fundamentally redesigning their workflows around AI. That's almost 3 times more than other companies. They're not just slapping an AI sticker on an old process. They're rebuilding the engine from the ground up. Now, you can't make changes that big without the bosses being on board. And that's exactly what the data shows. The C-suite in these high-performing companies is 3 times more likely to be deeply personally involved. This isn't something they've delegated. It's their project, and they're in it for the long haul. And of course, that commitment shows up in the budget. They are putting serious cash behind this. Over a third of these top companies are spending more than 20% of their entire digital budget just on AI. That's nearly 5 times what other companies are spending. They're not just hoping to win, they are investing to win. Okay, so let's shift gears and look at what's coming down the pike. The report also gives us a glimpse into the future, focusing on 2 really big topics: the rise of AI agents and the big question mark hanging over the workforce. So, the next big thing is AI agents. We're talking about AI that can handle complex, multi-step jobs all by itself. And surprise, surprise, we see the same pattern all over again. Lots of companies are playing with them, but very few are scaling them up. But, and this is the kicker, the high performers are already way ahead of the curve. They're scaling these agents 3 to 6 times faster than everybody else. The gap is already widening. And what about jobs? This is where things get really murky. Honestly, nobody seems to agree.
You've got about a third of companies expecting to shrink their workforce, but then you have a smaller chunk that actually thinks they'll hire more people because of AI. The biggest group, they think nothing will change. So the story of how AI will shape our jobs, it's still being written.
Okay, that was a lot of information. So let's boil it all down. If you remember nothing else from this deep dive, here are the 3 key takeaways and what they mean for you. Takeaway number 1. Just having AI isn't the prize. Adoption is wide, but the real value is narrow. The win comes from weaving AI deep into the fabric of your business. And that's exactly where most companies are getting stuck. Second, the winners are playing a different game. They aren't just looking for little tweaks to save a few bucks. They are aiming for total transformation. They're using AI to reinvent their entire business model and build brand new advantages that their competitors can't touch. And finding number 3, which might be the most important of all, this has to be a company-wide mission. Real success with AI isn't an IT project you can just hand off. It requires serious, visible buy-in from the very top leaders, and it needs a real budget to back it up year after year. So that leaves us with one final big question to think about for your own organization. Are you just using AI, or are you actually building your strategy around it to truly transform? Because that, right there, is the difference between leading the pack and getting left behind. Thanks for joining us at the Salon.